The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep hum. Commander Lee Dae-ho walked through them, his black military uniform crisp and clean. Behind him, Captain Park Soo-jin carried a data pad, her eyes scanning the huge room filled with alien beings. The chamber was enormous. Hundreds of different alien species sat in floating chairs that moved around the circular room. Some aliens looked like giant insects with sharp claws. Others glowed with bright energy that hurt to look at. In the center sat the most powerful group, the Vorthak Empire. The Vorthak looked almost human, but taller and stronger. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were completely black. They wore golden armor that seemed to shine with its own light. High Commander Thexavar sat in the biggest chair looking down at the humans with a cold smile. "So," Thexavar said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "the little humans have come again." Lee Dae-ho kept his face calm, but inside he felt angry. For 30 years, Earth had asked to join the Galactic Council. For 30 years, they had been told no. Earth was too young, too primitive, too dangerous. But now, something had changed. Admiral Kim Tae-won had worked for months to get this meeting. He sat with the other Earth representatives, his old face tired but hopeful. Next to him, Ambassador Yoon Bo-ra wore her best diplomatic clothes, a blue dress that matched Earth's flag. "We thank the Council for this chance," Yoon Bo-ra said, standing up. "Earth is ready to join the galactic community." Many aliens made sounds that might have been laughing. The insect-like Krillians clicked their claws together. The energy beings called Luxari pulsed with different colors. "Ready?" Thexvar stood up, his armor making soft humming sounds. "Your species still fights, with chemical explosives. You have not even left your own solar system without our help." "That is true," Yoon Bo-ra said carefully. "But we are willing to learn." "Learn?" One of the Krillians spoke, its voice like grinding metal. "You have been trying to build faster than light travel for 50 years. Our children make better engines with their toys." More alien laughter filled the chamber. Lee Dae-ho felt his hands make fists, but he kept them at his sides. Park Soo-jin touched his arm gently, a warning to stay calm. Thexavar walked down from his chair, each step echoing in the huge room. He was almost 3 meters tall, much bigger than any human. "However," he said, "the Council has decided to give you a chance." The room became quiet. Even the floating chairs stopped moving. "We will allow Earth to join as a junior member," Thexavar continued. "You will have no vote in Council decisions. You will follow all Council laws, and you will accept our guidance in all military matters." Admiral Kim Tae-won started to speak, but Yoon Bo-ra held up her hand. "What kind of guidance?" she asked. "We will provide you with proper weapons." Thexavar smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. "Your current military equipment is embarrassing. Kinetic bullets, chemical rockets, how did your species survive this long?" He waved his hand and several Vorthak soldiers entered the chamber. They carried large metal cases that floated behind them. The cases landed in front of the human delegation with soft thuds. "These are training weapons," Thexavar said. "Railguns that fire metal projectiles using magnetic fields. Basic energy shields powered by fusion cells. Simple plasma rifles that heat gas into destructive energy. These weapons are centuries old, by our standards, but they should be suitable for your current level of understanding." Lee Dae-ho looked at the cases. Through the clear tops he could see weapons that looked far more advanced than anything Earth had ever built. But the way Thexavar spoke about them made it clear he thought they were worthless junk. "Of course," Thexavar continued, "these weapons come with certain restrictions. You may only use them for defense of Earth and Council missions. You may not study them to understand how they work. You may not try to improve them or change them in any way. Our technical advisors will train your soldiers in their proper use." "Proper use?" Captain Park Soo-jin spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet but clear. Thexavar looked at her like she was a small child asking a stupid question. "Yes, little human. There are correct ways to use weapons in civilized warfare. We will teach you how to fight with honor, not like the savage animals your species prefers to be." Park Soo-jin nodded, but Lee Dae-ho could see her jaw tighten. She did not like being called little. We appreciate the Council's generosity, Yun Bora said diplomatically. When would training begin? Immediately, Thexavar returned to his chair. Your soldiers will come to our training facility on Vorth Prime. They will learn proper military discipline and tactics. No more of your chaotic human fighting styles. A Luxari energy being pulsed with what might have been amusement. Perhaps they will learn not to hide behind rocks and throw explosives like cowards, it said in a voice like singing crystal. Or use their own soldiers as bait for traps, added Acrylian. Such barbaric tactics have no place in civilized warfare. Deho almost spoke, but Admiral Kim Tae-won caught his eye and shook his head slightly. The Admiral was old and wise. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth and knew when to keep quiet. There is one more thing, Thexvar said. To prove your species can be trusted, you will participate in a mission. The Outer Rim colonies have been attacked by raiders. You will help defend them using your new weapons. Consider it a test. The way he said test made it sound like he expected humans to fail badly. We accept, Yunbora said without hesitation. The alien representatives began to leave their floating chairs. The meeting was over. As they filed out, Lee Dae-ho could hear them talking about humans in their own languages. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. They thought humans were weak and stupid. When most of the aliens had left, Thexvar approached the human group. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His black eyes reflected no light at all. A word of advice, he said quietly. Do not embarrass the Council with your primitive ways. Use the weapons as you are taught. Follow orders exactly. Do not try to be clever. Humans who think they are smarter than their betters tend to have short lives in this galaxy. He walked away, his golden armor gleaming under the chamber's lights. The humans stood alone with their cases of obsolete weapons. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Admiral Kim Tae-won broke the silence. Well, he said, it's not exactly what we hoped for, but it's a start. A start, Lee Dae-ho repeated, looking at the weapon cases. His mind was already working, thinking about what these tools could really do in human hands. Commander, Park Soo-jin said quietly, I think they just made a very big mistake. Lee Dae-ho looked at her and saw the same thought in her eyes that was in his mind. The aliens saw linear progress. Better technology meant better weapons. But humans saw something different. They saw opportunity. Yes, he said with a small smile. I think they did. As they carried the cases toward their transport ship, none of the aliens noticed the way the humans looked at their gift. They did not see the calculating expressions or the careful way human hands tested the weight and balance of each weapon. The Galactic Council had just given humanity the tools they needed. They thought they were handing out obsolete toys to primitive children. They had no idea what humans could do with toys. The transport ship lifted off from the Council station, carrying the human delegation and their new weapons back to Earth. In the cargo hold, the cases hummed softly with potential energy. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when you underestimated humanity. Soon, but not yet. 6 months had passed since the humans returned to Earth with their obsolete weapons. The Vorthak training facility on their home world had been a nightmare of rigid rules and boring drills. The alien instructors treated human soldiers like stupid children, making them practice the same basic moves over and over again. Fire in formation, the Vorthak trainer had shouted. Stand in straight lines. Aim at the center of your target. Wait for orders before moving. This is how civilized beings fight. But now the humans were back on Earth and things were different. Dr. Choi Min-ho sat in his underground laboratory, surrounded by pieces of alien technology. The railgun lay in parts on his metal table, each component carefully marked and studied. His thick glasses reflected the blue light from his computer screens. Fascinating, he muttered, picking up the magnetic coil assembly. They built this to last forever, but they never thought about making it do anything new. Choi had spent 20 years working on illegal weapons modifications before the government hired him. He knew how to look at a tool and see what it could become instead of what it was meant to be. Captain Park Soo-jin entered the lab carrying a steaming cup of coffee. The underground facility was always cold and the hot drink felt good in her hands. Any progress? She asked. More than progress. Choi smiled, his weathered face lighting up. I think I understand why they gave us these weapons. They're not obsolete at all, they're just limited. Limited how? Choi picked up a standard railgun projectile. It was a simple metal rod designed to punch through armor with pure kinetic force. The aliens think in straight lines. Point weapon at target, pull trigger, target dies. But what if we don't want the target to just die? He showed her a modified projectile he had been working on. It looked similar to the original but had small mechanical parts visible through its transparent casing. This one breaks apart after it hits, he explained. The pieces spread out and hit multiple targets. Or this one. He picked up another, modified round, releases an electromagnetic pulse when it explodes, perfect for disabling their electronic systems. Park Soo-jin examined the projectiles carefully. The training instructor said we must never modify the weapons. The training instructors, Choi laughed, don't understand human nature. We've been modifying weapons since we first picked up rocks. It's what we do. In another part of the facility, Sergeant Lim Hae-jin was testing the modified weapons on the firing range. The underground range had been built specifically for alien weapons testing, with thick walls and advanced safety systems. Lim had been special operations before joining the alien weapons program. She was small and quick, with scars on her hands, from years of handling dangerous equipment. The aliens had told her she was too aggressive, too unpredictable for proper warfare. She raised the modified plasma rifle and fired at a practice target. Instead of the single beam the weapon was designed to produce, it released a spreading cloud of superheated gas that covered 3 times the normal area. Beautiful, she whispered. Lieutenant Kang Woo-sung watched from the observation booth. As the team's explosives expert, he was most interested in the energy shields. The aliens used them as personal protection, like invisible armor that deflected incoming weapons. But Kang saw them differently. He had rigged several shields together into a portable barrier system. Instead of protecting one person, they could create temporary cover for an entire squad. Even better, he had found a way to overload the shield generators and turn them into powerful bombs. The aliens think defensively, he explained to Park Soo-jin during their daily briefing. They see a shield and think protection, but every defensive system can become an offensive weapon if you use it right. Commander Lee Dae-ho spent his days studying combat footage from alien wars. The Galactic Council had provided these videos as training materials, showing proper military tactics and formations. What Lee saw made him shake his head in amazement. The aliens fought like ancient Earth armies, with honor and ceremony. They announced their attacks, fought in neat formations, and followed predictable patterns. When one side was clearly losing, they would surrender rather than fight to the death. They're playing a game, he told Admiral Kim Tae-won during one of their meetings. War is like chess to them. Everyone knows the rules. Everyone follows the same strategies. But what happens when someone plays a different game entirely? Admiral Kim was old enough to remember the last wars on Earth. He had seen human soldiers do impossible things when their backs were against the wall. These aliens have never fought desperate people, he said quietly. They don't know what humans do when we have nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, Dr. Choi's team had made another discovery. The aliens had built their weapons to work together, in specific ways. The railguns fired at certain ranges, the plasma rifles worked at different distances, and the shields protected against predicted attack patterns. But the weapons could also be combined in ways the aliens never imagined. Look. At this, Sergeant Lim demonstrated during a test session. She had mounted a small shield generator on her railgun. When she fired, the shield created a tunnel that guided the projectile and protected it from enemy fire. The result was a weapon that could hit targets that should have been impossible to reach. Or this. Lieutenant Kang showed them his latest creation. He had connected several plasma rifle power cells to a single emitter. Instead of many small shots, it could fire one massive blast that could destroy heavy armor or structures. The modifications were not just about the weapons themselves. The humans were also developing new ways to use them together. Captain Park Soo-jin had created entirely new tactical formations. Instead of the rigid lines the aliens preferred, Human squads would spread out and move unpredictably. They used the terrain for cover, attacked from multiple directions, and retreated before the enemy could respond. The aliens expect us to fight. Fair, she explained to her tactical team. They expect us to follow their rules, but we never agreed to play by their rules. One of the most important discoveries came from studying alien psychology. The different species all had predictable behaviors in combat. The Vorthak always tried to win through superior firepower. The Krillians relied on swarming attacks with large numbers. The Lixari used their energy manipulation to control the battlefield. They're specialized, Commander Lee realized. Each species has one way of fighting, and they're very good at it. But they don't adapt when something unexpected happens. The human team began developing specific tactics to counter each alien species. Against the Vorthak, they would use hit-and-run attacks that prevented the aliens from bringing their heavy weapons to bear. Against the Krillians, they would use area effect weapons to break up their swarm formations. Against the Luxari, they would use rapid movement and unpredictable patterns that the energy beings couldn't anticipate. As the months passed, the human modifications became more sophisticated. Dr. Choi's team had essentially redesigned the alien weapons from the inside out, while keeping them looking exactly the same from the outside. The best part, Choi explained to Commander Lee, is that the aliens will never see it coming. They gave us these weapons because they thought we were too primitive to do anything creative with them. They're about to learn how wrong they were. The underground facility buzzed with activity as human engineers, soldiers, and tacticians worked together. They shared ideas freely, building on each other's innovations in ways that would have been impossible in the rigid alien military structure. Sir, Captain Park Soo-jin approached Commander Lee with a datapad full of test results. I think we're ready. Lee looked at the numbers and smiled. Human kill ratios with the modified weapons were 10 times higher than with the original designs. Response times were faster, adaptability was better, and the new tactics were proving devastatingly effective in simulations. Ready for what? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Ready to show the galaxy what humans can really do, Park, Soo-jin replied. In the depths of the facility, the modified weapons waited in their cases. They looked identical to the obsolete tools the aliens had given them, but appearances could be deceiving. The aliens had given humans these weapons as a way to control them, to keep them weak and dependent. Instead, they had handed humanity the keys to a revolution in warfare. Soon, the galaxy would see what happened when you underestimated human ingenuity. Very soon. The emergency message reached Earth at 3 a.m. Admiral Kim Tae-wan was pulled from his sleep by the urgent beeping of his communication device. The holographic display showed High Commander Thexvar's face, but the usual arrogance was replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Admiral Kim, Thexvar said without his normal formal greeting. The Council requires immediate human assistance. The mining colony of Zerion 7 is under attack by the Devourers. Kim rubbed his tired eyes. He had heard of the Devourers from intelligence reports. They were a savage species that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty space behind. The Galactic Council had been fighting them for decades without much success. What kind of assistance? Kim asked. Military assistance. You will deploy your forces to defend the colony using the weapons we provided. Consider this your final test for Council membership. The hologram flickered and died. Kim stared at the empty space where Thexvar's image had been. Something was wrong. The Vorthak never asked for help, especially not from humans they considered primitive. Within 6 hours, Colonel Jang Seok-jin was aboard a transport ship with 200 human soldiers. He was a veteran of Earth's corporate wars, a man who had learned to fight in places where there were no rules and no mercy. The journey to Zerion 7 took 3 days. During that time, Yang briefed his soldiers on what they would face. The Devourers were not like other alien species. They did not negotiate, they did not surrender, and they did not take prisoners. They simply consumed everything in their path. Fury, good news, Jang told his troops, is that they're not very smart. They attack in massive swarms, relying on numbers rather than tactics. The bad news is that 1,000 previous battles have proven that normal tactics don't work against them. Private Han So-young listened carefully to the briefing. She was young, barely 22, but she had grown up in the slums of Seoul where survival meant being smarter than your enemies. The modified weapons felt good in her hands, familiar despite their alien origin. Chief Warrant Officer Oh Byung-ho sat in the back of the briefing room, cleaning his modified railgun. He was old enough to remember when humans fought each other, over scraps of food and territory. Those had been desperate times that taught desperate lessons. "Sir," he asked Colonel Jang, "what's the real situation? Why did the Council send us instead of their own forces?" Jang's expression grew grim. "Because their own forces keep losing. 3 different Council fleets have tried to stop the Devourers. At Zerion 7, all 3 were destroyed. We're not reinforcements. We're the last desperate option." The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zerion system. Immediately, their sensors detected the Devourer fleet. Over 1,000 ships of various sizes all moving toward the small mining colony like a swarm of hungry insects. "My God," whispered Captain Nam Yunji from the pilot's seat. She had seen combat before, but never anything like this. The Devourer ships were ugly things covered in spines and organic-looking armor. They moved without formation, simply rushing forward in a massive wave. "All units, this is Colonel Jang." The commander's voice crackled over the communication system. "Remember your training. Remember what these weapons can really do, and remember that we're not here to fight fair." The human ships were small compared to the Devourer fleet. 200 soldiers in lightweight fighters and assault craft, facing an enemy that had destroyed 3 entire Council fleets. By any reasonable calculation, the humans should have been dead within minutes, but humans had never been reasonable. The first surprise came when the human ships didn't form up in the neat attack formations the Devourers expected. Instead, they scattered in all directions, using the asteroid field around Zerion 7 as cover. The Devourers had to split their fleet to chase them, breaking up their overwhelming numbers advantage. Private Han So-young found herself alone in her fighter pursued by 5 Devourer ships. The enemy vessels were larger and more heavily armed, but they flew in predictable patterns. She led them through a maze of asteroids, using her ship's superior maneuverability to stay ahead of their weapons. Then, she did something no alien pilot would ever consider. She turned her fighter around and flew directly at the lead Devourer ship, firing her modified railgun at point-blank range. The projectile, designed by Dr. Choi to fragment on impact, tore through the enemy ship's armor and shredded its internal systems. The explosion was so close that it damaged her own fighter, but Han didn't care. She had learned in the Seoul slums that sometimes you had to risk everything to survive. Chief Warrant Officer Oh Byung-ho was leading a ground assault on the mining colony itself. The Devourers had already landed thousands of troops, and they were consuming the colony's infrastructure to fuel their own growth. "This is just like the old days," Oh muttered to himself, setting up an ambush in the colony's industrial sector. He had taken the mining equipment and turned it into weapons. Ore crushers became traps, conveyor belts became defensive positions, and the colony's power grid became a massive electrical weapon. When the Devourers attacked, they found themselves in a maze of death. The industrial equipment controlled by human engineers crushed and burned the invaders. The colony's own systems had been turned against them in ways they could never have imagined. But the most devastating surprise came from Sergeant First Class Bae Dong-hyun. He had positioned himself in the colony's central tower with a modified plasma rifle. Instead of firing at individual targets, he had connected the weapon to the colony's main power grid. When he pulled the trigger, the entire weapon overloaded in a massive explosion that vaporized the tower and everything within, a kilometer radius. The blast was so powerful that it created an electromagnetic pulse that disabled hundreds of Devourer ships. Bae died in the explosion, but his sacrifice broke the back of the Devourer assault. The enemy fleet, suddenly leaderless and confused, began to retreat. Colonel Jang watched from his command ship as the Devourer fleet fled the system. Around him, his communications officer was trying to count their victories. "Sir, we've destroyed over 600 enemy ships," the young officer reported in amazement. "Our losses are minimal," Zhang nodded grimly. They had won, but not the way the aliens expected. They had won by fighting dirty, by taking risks and by sacrificing themselves when necessary. They had won by being human. The news of the human victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. At first, nobody believed it. How could 200 primitive humans defeat a force that had destroyed 3 council fleets? But the evidence was undeniable. The Devourer fleet was gone, the colony was saved, and the humans had done it with obsolete weapons. High Commander Thexvar received the report in his command center on Vorth Prime. He read it 3 times, then called for his military advisors. "Explain this to me," he demanded. "How did the humans achieve what our best forces could not?" His advisors had no answer. The human tactics made no sense according to standard military doctrine. They had sacrificed ships and soldiers, used industrial equipment as weapons, and fought with a desperation that seemed almost insane. "Perhaps," one advisor suggested carefully, "we underestimated them." Thexvar's black eyes grew cold. "Impossible. They used the weapons we gave them. Obsolete weapons that our children play with." But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that perhaps obsolete weapons in the right hands were not obsolete at all. On Earth, the celebration was quiet. The humans had proved themselves, but they had also revealed their true capabilities. There would be no more surprise attacks, no more underestimation. The galaxy now knew that humans were dangerous. The question was, what would the galaxy do about it? 3 months after the victory at Zerion 7, the galaxy was talking about humans. In the trading stations, alien merchants whispered stories of the small species that had done the impossible. In military academies, young alien officers studied reports of the battle, trying to understand what had happened. But the Galactic Council's leadership refused to believe what they were hearing. "Exaggerated reports," High Commander Thexvar declared during an emergency council session. "The humans got lucky. The Devourers were weakened from previous battles. It means nothing." The other council members wanted to agree with him. The alternative was too disturbing to consider, that their most basic assumptions about warfare were wrong. Major Yu Jae-sung sat in his office on Earth, surrounded by alien psychology profiles. He had spent his career studying how different species thought and fought. Now that knowledge was more valuable than ever. "The Vorthak," he explained to Commander Lee Dae-ho, "see war as a contest of strength. The strongest wins, the weakest dies. They cannot understand victory through weakness or sacrifice." He pulled up another file. "The Krillians think in terms of the hive. Individual deaths mean nothing as long as the group survives, but they expect their enemies to think the same way. When humans fight as individuals making personal choices, it confuses them." "And the Luxari?" Lee asked. "Energy beings who have lived for thousands of years. They think in long terms and perfect patterns. Chaos and unpredictability are alien concepts to them." Yu smiled grimly. "Which makes them very vulnerable to chaotic and unpredictable humans." Captain Nam Yunji was putting these psychological insights to use in the asteroid fields of the Cygnus sector. Her fighter squadron had been assigned to patrol duty, a routine mission that should have been boring. Instead, they found themselves facing a wing of Krillian raiders who were attacking merchant ships. The Krillians fought exactly as predicted. They formed a tight swarm, moving together like a school of fish. Their tactics were perfect for overwhelming a single target with superior numbers, but Nam's squadron didn't fight like a single target. Her fighters spread out across the asteroid field, each pilot making independent decisions. When the Krillians tried to swarm one fighter, the others attacked from different angles. When they tried to maintain formation, human pilots used the asteroids to break up their group. Within an hour, the Krillian raiders were destroyed. Not a single human fighter was lost. "How is this possible?" the Krillian fleet commander asked over the communication channel before his ship exploded. "Your weapons are inferior. Your numbers are smaller. You should not be able to win." Nam's answer was simple. "We don't fight by your rules." The reports of human victories began to pile up. A single human squad defeated a Vorthak patrol using modified shield generators as explosive devices. A human reconnaissance team captured a Luxari commander by using random movement patterns that the energy being couldn't predict. Each victory made the aliens more nervous, but they still couldn't understand what was happening. Sergeant First Class Bae Donghyun's younger brother, Corporal Bae Min-soo, had inherited his siblings' talent for unconventional warfare. He was stationed on the border world of Krell 9 when the Vorthak Empire decided to test human defenses. The Vorthak sent a full battle group, 12 heavy cruisers with the latest weapons and shields. Against them, the humans had one small outpost with 50 soldiers and their obsolete equipment. The battle should have lasted 5 minutes. Instead, it lasted 5 hours. Min-soo had spent weeks studying the orbital mechanics of the Krell system. He knew exactly when the system's 3 moons would align, creating a gravity well that would affect ship movement. When the Vorthak fleet arrived, he was ready. Using modified railguns as improvised mass drivers, his team launched chunks of asteroid into the gravity well. The rocks became high-speed projectiles that the Vorthak shields couldn't stop because they weren't designed to defend against naturally occurring space debris. Impossible, the Vorthak fleet commander transmitted as his flagship's armor was shredded by flying rocks. You are using the planet itself as a weapon. This violates all conventions of civilized warfare. We never signed your conventions, Min-soo replied calmly, launching another asteroid at the enemy fleet. The psychological impact of these victories was enormous. Alien military officers who had been certain of their superiority began to doubt themselves. How could the most advanced species in the galaxy keep losing to primitives with obsolete weapons? General Shin Hye-won watched the reports with satisfaction. She had been appointed to command all human military operations, and she was seeing her plans come together perfectly. The aliens are starting to fear us, she told her staff during a briefing. Fear makes them make mistakes. Mistakes we can exploit. Brigadier General Lee Sang-min, her intelligence chief, nodded in agreement. Our psychological warfare division has been monitoring alien communications. They're calling us unpredictable, chaotic, and dangerous. Some species are already requesting that their ships avoid human-controlled space. Good, Shin replied. But we need to be careful. Fear can also make enemies desperate, and desperate enemies are the most dangerous kind. Her warning proved prophetic. The Luxari Collective, disturbed by the human victories, decided to eliminate the threat before it grew larger. They sent a stealth fleet to attack Earth directly. The Luxari were masters of energy manipulation. Their ships could bend light around themselves, becoming invisible to most sensors. They could phase through solid matter, making conventional weapons useless. They had planned to destroy Earth's major cities before the humans even knew they were under attack. But Master Sergeant Park Jung-soo had been studying energy patterns for months. He had noticed that the Luxari ships, despite being invisible, still created heat signatures and electromagnetic disturbances. They think they're undetectable, he explained to his defense team, but energy has to go somewhere. We just need to look for the right signs. When the Luxari fleet attacked, they found Earth's defenses ready. Modified plasma rifles tuned to detect energy wavelengths could track the invisible ships. Overloaded shield generators created electromagnetic pulses that forced the alien vessels back into normal space. The battle was short and brutal. The Luxari, used to fighting enemies who couldn't see them, had no defense against humans who could track their energy signatures. How did you know we were coming? The captured Luxari commander asked, his energy form flickering with confusion. We studied you, Park Jung-soo replied. We learned how you think, how you fight, how you see the world. Knowledge is the best weapon. The news of Earth's successful defense against a stealth attack sent shockwaves through the galaxy. If humans could defeat invisible enemies, what couldn't they do? High Commander Thexvar found himself facing questions from the other council members. How had the species they had dismissed as primitive become such a threat? It's the weapons, he insisted. Somehow they've modified the technology we gave them. If we take the weapons away, they'll be helpless again. But privately, he wasn't so sure. The reports from the front lines painted a picture of human tactics that relied more on creativity and adaptability than on advanced technology. Even if they took away the weapons, would that stop human ingenuity? On Earth, the mood was grim despite the victories. The humans knew they were living on borrowed time. Each success made them more enemies, and eventually, the galaxy would unite against them. "We need to be ready for anything," General Shin told Admiral Kim during their daily meeting. "The aliens are scared, and scared people do stupid things." "What kind of stupid things?" Kim asked. "The kind that start wars," Shin replied grimly. In the depths of space, alien fleets were gathering. The Galactic Council was preparing for something unprecedented, a united military action against a member species. They told themselves it was necessary, that humans had become too dangerous to ignore. But deep in their minds, many aliens wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. The humans had defeated every challenge so far, using nothing but obsolete weapons and primitive tactics. What would they do when faced with the combined might of the entire galaxy? The answer, they suspected, would change everything. The message arrived on a golden data crystal, delivered by a Vorthak diplomatic ship that appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Kim Tae-wan held the crystal in his weathered hands, knowing that whatever it contained would change everything. "The Galactic Council hereby challenges the human species to a formal military exercise," the holographic message began. High Commander Thexvar's image stood in the center of the command room, his black eyes filled with cold determination. "This exercise will demonstrate the proper relationship between advanced and primitive species." General Shin Hye-won listened to the message with a calm expression, but inside she felt her heart racing. This was it, the moment they had all been preparing for. "The exercise will take place in the Nexus system," Thexvar continued. "Human forces will face the combined elite units of the Vorthak Empire, the Krillian Collective, and the Luxari Commonwealth. You will use only the weapons we provided. We will use our most advanced military technology." The hologram paused, and for a moment Thexvar's mask of confidence slipped. "This exercise will prove once and for all that technological superiority determines the outcome of warfare. When you lose, humanity will accept its proper place as servants to its betters." The message ended, and the room fell silent. "Well," Admiral Kim said, "they're not even pretending this is friendly anymore." "How many ships are they bringing?" asked Brigadier General Lee Sang-min. General Shin consulted her intelligence reports. "Our scouts report over 300 vessels, Vorthak heavy battleships, Krillian swarm carriers, and Luxari energy projectors. Their combined firepower could destroy a small moon." "And us?" Kim asked. 200 ships, same as always." Shin smiled grimly. "They're expecting us to lose badly and publicly, to prove that human victories were just luck." Master Sergeant Park Jung-soo raised his hand. "General, what if this isn't really an exercise? What if they plan to destroy us regardless of the outcome?" The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everyone in the room was thinking the same thing, but nobody had wanted to say it out loud. "Then we sure the galaxy remembers what happened. Here," Shin replied quietly. The human fleet assembled at the edge of the Nexus system looked pathetic compared to the alien armada waiting for them. The alien ships were massive, gleaming with advanced armor and with weapons that could tear apart planets. The human ships were small and carried weapons that the galaxy considered obsolete. But appearances, as the aliens were about to learn, could be very deceiving. Colonel Jang Seok-jin commanded the main battle group from his flagship. Around him, his officers were making final preparations. They had spent months planning for this moment, studying every alien ship design, every tactical doctrine, every cultural weakness. "Remember," he told his captains over the communication system, "they expect us to fight like them. Neat formations, predictable patterns, honorable tactics, they've prepared for that kind of battle. What they haven't prepared for," added Captain Nam Yoon-ji from her fighter wing, "is us fighting like humans." The exercise began with formal declarations and ceremonial positioning of fleets. The aliens arranged themselves in perfect battle formations, each species showing off their technological superiority. Then the shooting started, and everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare fell apart. The human fleet didn't form up in neat lines. Instead, individual ships scattered throughout the Nexus system using asteroids, gas clouds, and gravitational anomalies as cover. They moved unpredictably, changed tactics without warning, and attacked targets that made no strategic sense. The Vorthak battleships designed to destroy enemies through overwhelming firepower found themselves chasing shadows. Every time they locked onto a human ship, it disappeared behind an asteroid or into a nebula. When they tried to flush the humans out with massive bombardments, the humans simply weren't where the aliens expected them to be. "This is not proper warfare," High Commander Thexvar shouted over the communication channel. "Form up and fight, with honor." "Honor is for the dead," Colonel Zhang replied, launching a spread of modified torpedoes that split into dozens of smaller warheads. The Vorthak shields designed to stop large projectiles were overwhelmed by the swarm of smaller impacts. The Krillian swarm carriers released thousands of small fighter craft, expecting to overwhelm the human fleet through sheer numbers. But Captain Nam Yunji's pilots were ready for them. Using tactics developed by studying insect behavior, the human fighters created artificial swarm patterns that confused the Krillian pilots. "They're mimicking our formations," the Krillian commander buzzed in frustration. "But they're doing it wrong. They're breaking the patterns randomly." That was exactly the point. The human pilots would join Krillian formations, then suddenly break away and attack from unexpected angles. The Krillians, programmed to follow swarm behavior, couldn't adapt to the chaos. The Luxari energy projectors were the most dangerous, enemy ships. They could phase through matter, become invisible, and strike with beams that could cut through any armor. But Master Sergeant Park Jung-soo had been studying energy patterns for over a year. "They think they're untouchable," he explained to his weapons team. "But energy beings are still bound by physical laws. They have to materialize to attack, and when they do, they're vulnerable." The humans had modified their sensors to detect the electromagnetic disturbances that Luxari ships created. More importantly, they had learned to predict when and where the energy beings would attack based on their cultural patterns. When a Luxari ship materialized to fire its weapons, it found human ships already waiting with concentrated plasma fire. The aliens had never faced enemies who could anticipate their movements. But the real shock came when the human fleet began using the Nexus system itself as a weapon. The system contained an unstable star, 3 gas giants, and an asteroid belt rich in radioactive materials. Under Dr. Choi Min-ho's direction, human engineers had spent weeks calculating gravitational effects, stellar wind patterns, and radiation levels. They turned the entire system into a massive trap. "You're using the star as a weapon?" Thexvar's voice cracked with disbelief as human ships herded the alien fleet toward a solar flare that erupted exactly on schedule. "We're using everything as a weapon," General Shin replied from her command ship. "That's what humans do, we adapt." The alien fleet, caught between the solar flare and human fire, began to break apart. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles were destroyed by modified weapons wielded by a species they had dismissed as primitive. But the final blow came when the aliens realized they were fighting the wrong battle entirely. While the space combat raged, human infiltration teams had been working their way aboard the alien command ships. Using stealth technology improvised from modified shield generators, they had penetrated the enemy fleet's most secure vessels. Master Sergeant Park Jung-soo materialized in the center of the Vorthak flagship's command center, his modified plasma rifle aimed at High Commander Thexvar's head. "Surrender," he said simply. Thexvar's black eyes went wide with shock. "Impossible. Our security systems are impenetrable. No primitive species could..." "Could what?" Park interrupted. "Could think outside your rigid patterns, could use your own technology against you, could be smarter than you expected." Similar scenes played out across the alien fleet. Human soldiers appeared in command centers, engineering sections, and weapons bays. They had infiltrated the enemy fleet using tactics that the aliens couldn't even comprehend. "How?" Thexvar whispered. "We studied you," Park replied. "We learned how you think, how you build your ships, how you organize your forces. You made one critical mistake. You assumed we would fight like you. The battle was over. The combined alien fleet, the pride of 3 galactic civilizations, had been defeated by humans using obsolete weapons and primitive tactics. But more than that, the aliens' entire worldview had been shattered. Everything they believed about warfare, technology, and civilization had been proven wrong. High Commander Thexvar sat in his command chair, staring at the human soldier who had captured his flagship. Around them, alien officers watched in stunned silence. "What do you want?" Thexvar asked quietly. "What we've always wanted." General Shin's voice came over the communication system. "Respect, equality, and for you to stop treating us like children who need your guidance." The aftermath of the battle changed everything. News of the human victory spread through the galaxy faster than light, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees from the defeated fleets. The Galactic Council faced a crisis. Their military superiority, the foundation of their authority, had been destroyed by a species they had armed with obsolete weapons. Emergency sessions were called. Ancient alliances were questioned. Some species demanded immediate war against humanity, while others suggested negotiation, but the humans had already made their position clear. They didn't want war. They wanted partnership. They were willing to share their tactical innovations, their adaptive thinking, their human perspective on warfare and technology. "You gave us obsolete weapons," General Shin addressed the emergency council session, "thinking you were keeping us weak. Instead, you gave us the tools to revolutionize warfare itself." She stood before the assembled alien representatives, no longer the representative of a junior mammy,